Now joining us on line number 10 is the CEO of Nalcor, Ed Martin. Good afternoon, Ed. You're on the air.
Good afternoon there, Paddy.
Ed, it's been a tumultuous few days for Nalcor, Newfoundland Power, and of course the people of the province more so. This is an issue that arises because of some of the disconnect people or the understanding people have about how we arrived at this. Let's start first with what I can't figure out quite yet is whether or not we've had issues at Holyrood that were scheduled maintenance and or repairs and or how did they work out, especially the two turbines that are still not up to full capacity.
Well, Paddy, just before I answer that, I just want to take a moment to remind people to be safe during the situation at home and also at the workplaces. Thanks to the employees of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, Newfoundland Power, and government services who have been working non-stop. We're fully resourced on this. And just to mention to the people of the province, our customers, look, we understand how difficult this is. Thanks for their patience, and we are fully resourced and focused on this.
So let's talk about the timing of the repairs or maintenance.
Yeah, onto your question then about the scheduled maintenance and stuff. I just want to make one thing clear, is that all of the scheduled maintenance for the year for the units that we were experiencing issues with, they were scheduled prior to this event, and the work was performed prior to this event. The work that's going on these units now are actually repairs that we experienced after the planned maintenance was completed. So there's two different things there. So the work we're doing now is actually issues we had after the units were in service. The gas turbines units, one in Stephenville and one closer to St. John's at Hardwoods, it was primarily a fuel line issue that we had to repair. And at Holyrood, there's another issue with one of the units. It was a forced air draft fan, it's called. It went out of service certainly well after the planned maintenance schedule, and we've had to take that out and send it out of province for repairs. It's being expedited very aggressively. We're on standby with transportation, etc., to get that back as soon as possible and reinstalled.
When was the last time these gas turbines were operational?
We've had these turbines operational all throughout this year. We often use them in the summer for system support, voltage support and such. So in Stephenville gas turbine, the overhaul and planned maintenance on that unit took place earlier in the year, so it's been available and in use throughout the year. And with the Hardwoods gas turbine, which is located here very close to St. John's, that was, had been scheduled for maintenance after the summer, so it was being used during the summer, but had been scheduled after the summer in a period we called the shoulder season when it wasn't required, and that came back in service, was passed over to operations after the overhaul, and it was at that point, shortly thereafter, we experienced some fuel line problems, so not planned, and that's the repairs we're making on that now.
One of the issues that pops up and what I focus on as one of the key issues as to why we've suffered so extended power outages and or rolling blackouts is the whole Public Utilities Board application that they were reviewing of a third line coming from Central. We know we're spilling a lot of water at Bay d'Espoir currently that could have been powering up and powering the homes and businesses on this part of the island. Why was that third line never built, and how come, why isn't it done, and would that have spared us what has occurred in the last few days?
No, Paddy, the third line is planned, but it would not have helped us in the last few days. What the third line would provide us if it was in place, give us the opportunity to bring in some excess power that may exist during what we call the shoulder seasons, the season between the summer and the heavy load winter. And that meant that we could fire up Holyrood a little later as we approach the winter, and we would save some oil. But when you get into a situation, particularly like we had in the last few days, the third line wouldn't have helped because every piece of equipment in the system is maxed out to provide power. So we would not be able to bring in additional hydro power to displace Holyrood because all the power is being used throughout the island. So it would not have helped us at all in the last few days.
So help me understand this, because this is a question that's being posed by many is, okay, so the third line, if the third line was there, would we not have been able to not spill water at Bay d'Espoir or other facilities and that power to be transmitted on that third line to this part of the province, which would have avoided? Where am I missing the point here? Because if we're spilling water because we didn't have a way to transmit it to this part of the province, how are we, what am I missing here? Because Because for me, it seems pretty fundamental. If we had additional transmission capacity, we'd have additional power. Where am I wrong?
Well, Paddy, maybe I'll approach it this way. If you're spilling power during the summer months, that's one thing, because really you don't need that much power during that period of time. So even if it's available, you don't need it. Holyrood is not operating during the summer. We're servicing the island because the load is a lot lower during the summer from, say, Beta Spare and other hydro, and therefore, if you bring it in, there's nowhere to use it. Now, if you come to the winter time, and particularly like we had in the last few days, when the demand was extremely high because of the electricity and heating needs, the highest we've ever had, frankly, at that point, we are bringing in every bit of power that we can. All of the hydro facilities are maxed out, and all that power is getting in. We're not spilling there for sure, because we're bringing it all in during the peak period. So the issue becomes is that the third line is helpful for when we're not at full capacity load throughout the island. But when we're at full capacity and using every piece of equipment we have, that third line would be of no use to us.
What is the relationship? Many people don't understand this either, Ed. Is the relationship between the Premier's office, the 8th floor, Cabinet, and your office? A lot of people, you're hearing the same things I hear. They say that this is a direct result of taking our eye off the required upgrade and maintenance and repairs because of the blinders on regarding the development of Muskrat Falls. Do you get day-to-day directives from the Premier's office? Does she have say in what goes on so far as the application for a third line, for how we approach our repairs, the schedule of repairs? Is that strictly under your auspices and authority? What's your relationship? Describe it to us with the Premier's office.
If you look at our operation with respect to, let's go back to your initial point about focusing on Muskrat Falls, maybe not, and you're suggesting we're not focusing on something else. Nothing is further from the truth. I think the best example of that is two things. One is how we're organized, and we have a very senior executive in charge of each line of business. So Muskrat Falls is completely separate from hydro, and we have our most senior executive, one of our of each running each of those operations separately. Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro actually has approximately 800 wonderful employees working for them, highly experienced, focused only on hydro. And in addition to that, a good example for the people of the province to understand is that these assets are aging. We know it. We have a very strong plan in place on how to deal with that. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we'll say from 2007-8, say, up until now, the capital budget that we have invested each year in Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro has grown from approximately $50 million per year to $100 million per year, and that will continue for some period of time. So we are highly planned, we're highly maintaining these assets, and the level of investment has doubled since 2007, and we expect that to continue.
What role does politics play in decisions being made at Nalcor? There's a lot of pressure on the province's Crown Corp so far as energy goes. There is huge political capital already being spent on the development of Muskrat Falls. How much direction do you get from the Premier's office, and when she says that you jump, do you jump, or are you in full control of Nalcor and any director from Confederation Building be damned?
Well, you remember, I think, because I've heard you mention it before and others as well, when Nalcor was set up, the Energy Corporation of Newfoundland was set up for all the reasons we talked about with respect to leading the development of the province's resources, ensuring a safe and reliable electrical system, and all those things. You go back to that structure, and it was very clear that the province set that up as a business-focused entity. And that meant that we were to function as a business. The legislation and things around that were structured to ensure we function like a business, and we do. And now that being said, our relationship, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, the people of the province, are our shareholders. They own us. I certainly keep the minister and the premier informed constantly. But I will say this, is that from the business decision perspective, they obviously ask us to provide the technical and the financial and the economic analysis to be able to make decisions. I come forward with large decisions, very large decisions that would impact the province and be very public. And I certainly come back and say, look, here's the numbers, here's what's happening, and you need to understand these numbers and make sure that we're aligned. But once the understanding is there and the alignment is there, then they certainly, in those cases, will support the business decision, and then we are asked to move off and execute that in a very business-like fashion, using all those types of processes and procedures that make us as efficient as possible.
Were you in support of the decision that withdrew the application for the third line, or was that a political one?
That was absolutely a Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro recommended decision to go with the third line.
When's the last time a business case decision made by your office was overturned by the Premier?
It's never happened to me.
The confidence in the reliability of the power generation and transmission capacity in the province is going to be front and center of people's minds, and it is irrelevant whether or not people grasp any of the issues that have gone into any decision-making and or the convergence of events in the last few days. Faith has been lost, and that's the way it goes. Emotions run high. People are living in the cold houses and putting up with all the inconveniences from having rolling blackouts and extended power outages. Once that confidence has been lost, how does that affect how you do business, and how do you go about trying to restore any of the confidence? Because it is key, not just for business case, but also politically, and as a Crown Corp, politics does play a role inside the creation of and the day-to-day operations of Nalcor.
Well, first, I think the most important point there, Paddy, you mentioned is the inconvenience and discomfort people are experiencing. And there's a level of frustration out there that, I can certainly understand. And look, we are focused 150% in terms of bringing the generation back online. We know what's being experienced out there, and we know it's our responsibility to get things back online, which we're doing. As far as the confidence in the system, I'll say two things. One is, as I mentioned, Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, very large organization, very, very efficient, well planned. And we've doubled our capital investment, over the past 5 years, and we'll continue to do so. So there's lots of activities in place. On the flip side, though, I have to be clear as well that, many of these assets, Holyrood included, many of our transmission assets are in the 35 to 45-year-old age. If you look at a plant like Holyrood, that's coming to the end of its useful life over the next several years, which we knew and planned for, which is why we're moving ahead with other alternatives at this point. So we're going to invest the money heavily, but these are old assets, and we're going to have to continue to be more and more diligent, because this is old equipment, and I'm saying is that the load has grown. So we have old equipment. The load has grown significantly. We're actually peaking at higher levels now than we did before the Abitibi mill closed. And as we move forward, the demand will continue to increase, and it's our job to make sure we're investing properly, which we are, to get us to the point when we move on to the next new units of generation that we proposed.
And when you talk about the investment in the upgrading and repair of infrastructure and the confidence, we'll try and link those two together here. If the budget has gone up exponentially, as you described, some $100 million plus now annually, how have we arrived at this point where the system is not working? And look no further than the power outages and rolling blackouts. It can't all be a cold snap, and nor is the consumer's fault or the customer's fault. So if you've invested that much, how come the system isn't functioning?
Well, in this particular instance, typical to events when we have, significant outages, usually several things contribute, and it's no different in this case. In this case, we had a situation where we had two gas turbine units. A fuel line issues happened at the same time and are now under repair. We had the forced air fan issue at one unit on Holyrood that came upon us unexpectedly. The repairs are being impacted. But at the point that happened, we had this cold snap, the high winds, we had the blizzard conditions, and in the midst of that, we had a transformer at the height of the storm. We had a fire on a transformer. You put all those things together in a situation where we have peaked at a higher load during that time than we've ever had. Matter of fact, the load that we experienced during that period was almost 40% higher than anything we've seen during that period of time in the past 5 years. You put those things together, and it caused the situation we had. So what we've been doing is anticipating that, diligently managing it, make sure we're organized on each different piece of the elements of this, which we are. And Paddy, we have to work through that, and that's what we're doing. And we're keeping focused on the issue. We're getting things back online as quickly as we can. As far as what happens go forward, once again, I can never guarantee 100% reliability, but what I can guarantee is that we have a well-planned system, and we're investing significant money, twice as much as we have been over the years, to stay ahead of this thing.
When it comes to times like this, and you describe it as a crisis, certainly after the Sunnyside plant issue, we need leadership, then also people demand accountability. Where does the accountability lie for what's gone on the last number of days?
The accountability lies squarely with me, Paddy, Ed Martin. This is a Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro issue. I'm president and CEO of that company as well, and I take full accountability. And in that light, and in that context, our people are the same, and we are focused on this issue, as I say, 150%. But every time that we get to a point where double shifting in areas where we have to double shift, everyone is on standby in terms of additional resources. We brought in international expertise to help us with some of the more technical issues, and we are applying every resource and that we have in the company on this. We are well resourced, and I will say, our employees have been operating this equipment for many, many years. They are the most competent and highly dedicated people I've ever worked with, and they're doing their best for the people of the province.
What's it going to take weather-wise and/or attention to infrastructure to make sure we get through the winter without this type of occurrence again? Is it strictly in upgrades? Is it strictly in maintenance? What do we have to do to know that people are going to be protected and the infrastructure is sound?
Well, we have, I guess the three key things I'm seeing right now from an infrastructure perspective is, we need to continue to troubleshoot the fuel line issue at Stephenville. And I know we've had some success with that today, and that unit is up half power today, frankly. The second one is at Hardwoods. We have a team on that, and we are looking to test and run up that unit, again within the next day or two. So I'll know more then. I can't give a time because until I know the facts, I won't say when that could be back on. And with Holyrood, I think there's two issues out there. One is the unit I mentioned that had the fan issue. What the fan issue is, in essence, those units are basically units designed to burn oil, to heat water, to create steam. The steam then is used to cause the turbines to flow. So what we have here is in the combustion chamber, you have to inject air into the combustion chamber to make sure it's firing, obviously. And one of the fans that does that went out of service. So that means we can't inject as much air into the combustion chamber, which means that we can't burn as much, which takes down the power generation until we replace that fan. That fan is currently in the U.S. being refurbished. We have transportation on standby to get it back immediately, and crews on standby to load that back in. So that has to be done, and well in hand, well planned, and everything's that repair is progressing on schedule. Unfortunately, it happened during the issue with the storm. And the other thing that's happened with respect to bringing the units back up, there was one unit at Holyrood right now, so we have one unit up. The second unit is up, albeit not at full production. The third unit, when we were bringing it up this morning, it experienced some vibration. And I will also make clear to the listeners and to the people of the province that, this stuff is happening, and, we're very concerned, obviously, but as far as working those units, they have clear instructions from me to take your time. They're big, important units. Until you're sure, I put a cocoon around them in the plant to say, you do your job in the plant, make the right decisions technically, do what you have to do. I'll take care of I'm accountable outside of that, and I give them the feeling that you have to do what's right there. So when we experience vibration, they have full authority to stand back, take it down, and wait. Do more planning, get the expertise, and before you go ahead, make sure you have every step well planned. And that's the instructions they have. So right now in that unit, they're planning to run it up again, but not until they are satisfied and the technical leadership is satisfied that we have covered off every eventuality as we fire it up.
We appreciate your time this afternoon, Mr. Martin. Of course, everyone here at VOCM News, the news department, and my colleagues on the talk shows will reach out to you and your senior team as questions rise over the days to come. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Paddy. And I would like to add, once again, to the people of the province, we're working this. We know what you're going through. We understand it's very uncomfortable, and we're doing everything we can. And I also would ask the folks, again, please conserve, because you wouldn't believe how much that helps the load. And that means that we can try to get as much power to as many people throughout the province as we can if we're all working together. Well,
on that point, and then I'll let you go. Sorry, it just pops in my mind when you say conserve. Is in your authority to direct people to stay closed, whether it be big retail, supermarkets, mile one, otherwise, because the conservation is so important at this point? Who gets to ultimately make that decision? Is that political, or does that lie under your authority?
Well, actually, in this particular case, what we're finding most effective is, we have the province through the Premier and the Minister have formed a committee here that Nalcor, Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, Newfoundland Power, Government Services. We're all in a central group and committee. What we're doing is working through all of the contingency plans, all of the potential areas where we can save, and folks and people who are closest to any possible conservation effort have been assigned to speak to the people who can do it. So it's very well coordinated, and we're finding we're getting tremendous response very quickly from businesses and people throughout and commercial enterprises throughout the province, and we're finding that's the most effective way to do it. And bit by bit, we're seeing is that everyone's coming on board, and we are already seeing an impact today.
I appreciate your time once again, Mr. Mayor. We'll reach out to you in the days to come.
Yeah, I'll be available.
All the best. Bye-bye. Ed Martin is the CEO of Nalcor.